The controversy has officially exploded. Multiple Formula One teams have now raised formal concerns to the FIA regarding dangerously high closing speeds under DRS, and the governing body has publicly confirmed that they are reviewing the situation. DRS, the drag reduction system that was originally introduced to reduce racing stagnation, has now become the center of a full-blown safety debate. And after a weekend of alarming radio messages, near misses, and data spikes, the FIA is considering emergency changes. This is not a rumor, not speculation, not paddock whispers. This is now officially under FIA evaluation, with a spokesperson confirming they are evaluating options to ensure safe closing speeds. And the story behind that statement is deeper, more complex, and more urgent than many fans realize. The issue didn't appear overnight. Teams have been quietly complaining for weeks, but everything reached a breaking point after several drivers reported that the DRS delta is now so powerful, so extreme, and so unpredictable that overtakes feel like standing still versus warp speed. At certain tracks with long straights and low downforce setups, cars are now achieving closing speeds that far exceed what the FIA considers safe for reaction time. To understand why this matters, we need to break down exactly what's happening, why DRS deltas have exploded, why teams are suddenly panicking, and how the FIA might respond. Because for the first time in years, Formula One's most important overtaking tool is under serious scrutiny, and emergency regulation changes are now officially on the table. Teams didn't hold back in their complaints. According to insiders, at least 4 teams submitted safety briefings to the FIA after reviewing race data. They pointed to moments where the DRS-assisted car gained over 30, 35, even 40 kilometers an hour within a few seconds. Drivers described closing gaps so quickly that judging braking points became a gamble. Engineers reported deltas that were abnormally high, and strategists warned the FIA that these speeds could lead to a catastrophic misjudgment. In modern Formula One, where cars already operate on the knife edge of aerodynamics, even a 5-kilometer-an-hour delta can drastically alter racing behavior. But deltas above 30 kilometers an hour, that's not racing. That's a missile approaching a moving obstacle. Drivers have milliseconds to react, and at those speeds, any lockup, defensive move, or slipstream turbulence becomes exponentially more dangerous. The FIA knew this conversation was coming. Track data from the last few races showed patterns that couldn't be ignored. And when multiple teams backed their concerns with telemetry and safety analysis, the FIA had to respond. That's why the governing body has now stepped forward, publicly acknowledging that they are reviewing the DRS situation. And the wording was careful but very clear, evaluating options to ensure safe closing speeds. This is not soft language. This is the FIA confirming that the issue is real, pressing, and potentially serious enough to warrant immediate intervention. So how did we get here? Why is DRS suddenly more powerful than before? The answer is a mix of car design evolution, aerodynamic adjustments across the grid, and how the 2025 cars handle airflow. Over the past 2 seasons, cars have gotten significantly more efficient in low-drag configurations. Teams optimize their rear wing, beam wing, floor edges, and diffuser setups. This means that when DRS opens, it's no longer a small advantage. It becomes a massive drop in drag, way more than originally intended. Add the thermal performance improvements of modern power units, plus the increasing trend of running very low downforce at specific tracks, and the ingredients for extreme overspeed were already there. Teams optimized themselves into a safety concern. The cars got too efficient, the DRS effect multiplied, and the FIA is now stuck trying to rein in a system that's too potent for the speeds F1 has reached. In several races this year, the closing speeds became visually shocking. You didn't need timing graphics to see it. You could feel it. Cars blasting past others like they were parked. Drivers reacted late because the deltas were unpredictable. Defenders unable to judge whether they should defend or simply avoid contact. This is not the style of wheel-to-wheel racing the FIA intended when DRS was introduced. But before we dive into potential solutions, it's important to understand how the teams themselves see the issue. Internally, the paddock is split into 3 groups. Group 1 consists of teams pushing for immediate change. These teams argue that safety should come before entertainment. They believe that closing speeds have reached the threshold where one mistake could cause an incident similar to those seen in Junior Series, late reactions, contact under braking, or massive speed differentials. Group 2 is cautiously supportive but wants the FIA to address the issue without making drastic overnight adjustments.
They prefer minor tweaks over reducing DRS zone length, adjusting activation points, or altering rear wing specs. Group 3, although smaller, fears that any reduction in DRS may result in processional races. These teams want to protect overtaking opportunities but are open to more balanced solutions. The FIA is listening to all three, but safety always outweighs competitive preferences. That's why the investigation is moving quickly. The first step is already underway, evaluating DRS zone lengths at specific circuits. Not all tracks are problematic. Circuits with long straights like Monza, Jeddah, Baku, Shanghai, and Spa are prime examples where DRS deltas reach extreme levels. The FIA's data review indicates that even small adjustments, like shortening a zone by 50 to 100 meters, can drastically reduce overspeed. The second solution involves adjusting DRS activation points. Instead of activating DRS earlier on the straight, drivers may be forced to activate later, reducing the maximum overspeed before braking zones. This is a practical, immediate solution that could be applied before the next race. The third, more drastic measure is modifying rear wing specifications. This would involve mandating a slightly different DRS flap size or altering the opening angle to reduce the drag delta when the wing opens. This solution is complex as teams have different rear wing philosophies, but if the FIA implements a uniform change, it would dramatically reduce overspeed across the grid. The fourth potential solution is the most controversial, limiting DRS usage to specific race conditions or shortening the DRS window entirely. This option is unlikely for now, but it's still under theoretical consideration.
So how did this overspeed issue catch the FIA by surprise? The answer lies in how quickly teams develop around the rules. Engineers push every boundary. When the FIA sets a limit, teams find a way to exploit everything below that limit. And with the consistent push for efficiency, drag reduction, and slipstream gains, teams reached a point where DRS simply became too effective. Combine that with the fact that 2025 cars are still ground effect machines, heavily influenced by airflow behavior at high speeds. A following car can get a double benefit: reduced drag from DRS and reduced resistance from slipstreaming. The perfect storm. Overspeed grows, safety margins shrink, problems arise. Drivers have been hinting at this for weeks. Several described overtakes that felt unnatural. Others mentioned that defending a position became extremely difficult because predicting the closing speed was nearly impossible. Some even said they had to overcompensate in the braking zone to avoid causing an incident. At this level, with cars weighing over 800 kilograms and traveling at 300+ kilometers per hour, mistakes are not small, they're catastrophic. That's why multiple teams formally approached the FIA. And once formal submissions started arriving, the FIA had no choice but to respond publicly. This is not a political statement, it's a safety issue, and the FIA has always taken safety seriously. When they say they are evaluating options, it means real discussions are happening right now among the rulemakers. This brings us to the heart of the story, what the FIA spokesperson actually said. In a rare moment of transparency, the FIA confirmed they are evaluating options to ensure safe closing speeds. These words are extremely important. Evaluating means the process is active. Options means multiple solutions are being analyzed. Ensure safe closing speeds means the FIA has determined that closing speeds have reached the point where safety is now a concern. This is the FIA publicly acknowledging a problem and signaling that changes are very likely. But how quickly could changes be implemented? That depends on the severity of the data. If the FIA determines that certain tracks pose immediate risk, they can modify DRS zones before the next race weekend. Historically, the FIA has adjusted DRS zones between sessions, between days, and between races. It's one of the few regulations they can change instantly without team consent. More structural changes, like modifying the rear wing opening angle, would require technical directives. These take longer, but can still be deployed mid-season if necessary. The most interesting angle is how this impacts racing in the short term. Some circuits rely heavily on DRS to create overtaking opportunities. Reducing DRS power will naturally reduce the number of overtakes. But at the same time, most teams have agreed that overtakes should be earned, not gifted by extreme overspeed. With the 2026 regulations approaching, the FIA is under additional pressure, and if necessary, the FIA won't hesitate to make emergency adjustments, because when closing speeds reach dangerous territory, the only priority that matters is safety.